So, what's going on with Christian Pulisic? I'm Doc Faisal, orthopedic surgeon with Move Smarter Health. We are sponsored by an educational grant from Kinesi Movement. I love sports. I love talking about injuries. I take care of shoulder and knee injuries, and I operate and treat on them. And please consider this an educational, informative video only. Here we go. Okay, so World Cup's on. All right, go USA. I do, like a few teams out there. I like to see how their game is. So to the Spanish fans, I hope you guys do well, but you'll get crushed eventually because USA will win. USA, right? Right. Okay. Brazil, they better have a good showing. Argentina's already having a good showing. Cape Verde? Who? So the goalie for Cape Verde went from like maybe under 100,000 followers to 7 million overnight. Maybe not overnight. Overnight is so relative. It could be a long night, right? Right. Okay. So lots happening. And my son actually made it to the New Zealand match on Monday, like randomly. So that was awesome. So that was, he had a great time. He's coming back tonight, so we'll find out what it was like. So what's going on with Christian Pulisic? What happened? I know. You guys all saw it, left calf injury. Here we go. Christian Pulisic, left calf injury. What's a calf? Hold on.
Baby cow.
So, this is Christian Pulisic's leg. Mirror image, this is right, that's left. He does not have blue toenails. My daughter painted them. So, this is your calf. Okay, what does the calf include? Okay, so you can run, you can walk, so you land, you plant, and you jump off, okay? You land, you plant, and you jump off, okay? And then if you kick, boom, oops, wrong way. Boom, boom, okay? So, thanks, Charles. Good job. See, told you I'd bring you back. So the calf connected to the knee, right? So the calf is made up of a bunch of muscles. Most importantly, the gastroc, soleus, and then a bunch of other things. You got the flexors and all that, but the main thing, mostly on the outside, you have the medial and lateral gastrocs, and underneath that you have the soleus. That converges and becomes confluent into the Achilles tendon. I heard you, Nebraska. You called it out before I said it. Good for you. So here's the thing. A calf injury can be many things. It could be a bruise, could be soft tissue, it could be just a dimple, it could be a cut, it could be a deep laceration. It could be a deep tissue injury. It could be a serious injury. It could lead to compartment syndrome. You get a really bad blow like a Charlie horse. We've all had a Charlie horse. If you haven't had a Charlie horse, just go ask your neighbor to give you a Charlie horse. It's an experience. But a Charlie horse is basically the idea you get bang, impact onto your quads, but in this case the thigh, and that bruises the tissue and the muscle, and it basically goes into a tight spasm, and you can actually have anywhere from just contusion to micro tears to hemorrhage to bleeding to bruising to, in fact, partial tears and tears, depending on the extent of the injury. Now, if it's a sharp object, you get cuts and lacerations. If it's a blunt, sharp object, like a blunt object that isn't, round and has a less conical surface and a little bit more of an edge, then you can get deep tissue trauma and in fact actually have lacerations, and you can have damage from the soft tissues all the way deep down into the nerves and vessels if it gets bad enough. And that's where you get into severe trauma. Usually that happens in car accidents, falls, crashes, ski accidents, all sorts of things. And then you can end up with compartment syndrome, or you can end up with lacerations, tears. Now, let's assume it's somewhere in the neighborhood between contusion and a deep micro tear, somewhere in the middle. Where does that leave you? So we'll talk about that. Is he going to be back? Is he going to be playing on Friday? I hope so. And we don't know much information about it, but if it is just a contingent, heck, it's the World Cup. I mean, Stone for the Vegas Golden Knights was playing with massive injuries last year and the year before, actually 2 years ago. But even this year, everyone was playing with injuries. I mean, that's why Anderson jumped out of the playoffs and Bussy came in. Stop. Bussy is awesome. So I know. All of a sudden, all the soccer fans are saying, what the heck is he talking about? Yes, I switched to hockey because I love hockey, and soccer and hockey just go well together. It's kind of like pizza and a Coke, hockey and soccer. It's like, it's a perfect blend. So wouldn't it be great if hockey and soccer were like overlapping at the same time? They kind of are. Well, they were. Anyway, so calf injuries. It could be a deep tissue bruise, and it could be even a micro tear, partial tear, and it can take time. I mean, and more often than not, if you do get a deep tissue bruise, things tighten up. So we've talked about this before. You get, yes, North Dakota. That was random. So you get actin myosin filaments, you get that ratcheting, and what happens is you get an injury, you get a calcium imbalance, you get potassium, phosphorylase, all these proteins, chemicals, and molecules that limit the movement of the muscle to protect it, right? You get an injury, you tighten up, you splint, it bruises, and if you get a tear, you get some blood, micro tear, or a real tear, or a partial tear, or a complete tear. Based on the mechanism of injury, let's hope it wasn't, as severe as that. But regardless, you need to stretch it out. You need to loosen it up. You need to do all sorts of things: anti-inflammatory gels, TENS, stretching, physical therapy, ice, cold, hot, baths, and all sorts of things, from cupping to rolfing to deep tissue work to Graston techniques. You name it, they're going to do it. Acupuncture, voodoo. Is he going to get a PRP injection or regenerative technology? Well, maybe. If it's a significant partial tear, maybe he might do that. Anything's possible. Ultrasound guided prolotherapy. Say he's having some pain. You need to do some prolotherapy around the muscle tissue nerve area. That's always possible. So let's just look at some of the various examples of what could have happened. So we know he got kicked, right? Now, was it the front of the boot? Was it the toe? Was it a cleat? Now, we've seen those horrible injuries, like where, athletes collide and they're going up for a ball, they fall over each other, and you get a cleat landing on the leg or the arm or something. Those are some of the worst injuries, and thank goodness they're, typically, not soft plastic, hard plastic, as opposed to like a metal cleat. That would be brutal. It's kind of like the same thing. Getting an ice skate slashing your arm or leg, which has happened in hockey players. I brought in hockey again. See? Hockey, soccer, a pizza, and a Coke. It's just perfect. So, no, I'm not sponsored by pizza or Coke. Don't worry. So let's just look at the example of a more blunt injury. So more than likely it's just a contusion. He'll get better and we'll see him on Friday, and he should be fully recovered. Let's assume best case scenario. If it's like an actual cleat where you get like these dimples in his calf from the cleat hitting him, that's gonna hurt a little bit, but he'll deal with it. It's the World Cup. They'll use freezing spray, anti-inflammatories, all sorts of things. If he hasn't had an MRI, if they think it's a partial tear, maybe he's had an MRI. If it were severe that he had compartment syndrome, like a massive crush, serious tissue injury, we would have heard about it, because that would have required him to go to the hospital, emergency fasciotomy to decompress it. And we haven't heard anything like that. Thank goodness. So he should be good. And but barring any serious injuries, what do you have to do? You stretch out the calf. And remember, hey Charles, so the Achilles, gastroc on top, soleus deeper, and the medial and lateral gastroc attach above the knee. So in order to stretch your calf, you have to stretch your foot and ankle and your knee and the pelvis and hip area. So it's multi-joint kinematics. And all the good therapists and doctors and everything knows that. I'm stating the obvious for them, but for you guys who love to learn, that is the important part of any kind of rehab and recovery. And I notice, and I've done sports physicals for kids and college, high school, and I've done it even on patients, and you realize that hamstrings are probably the most underrated injury prone mechanism because people are not really stretching their hamstrings well enough. And you can see that in the postural kinematics of individuals. You see that in their knee stiffness when you try and bring their leg up. And it's really important. Hamstrings, calf, Achilles. I think there's a lot of knee injuries happen because if you look at the kinematics of all those muscles, if you stretch it out, you have less impact loading. And if you imagine all the muscles are tight, you get a compressive effect across the joint. Very obvious. If you get a squeaky joint, it's going to hurt more. If you get a relaxed joint, it'll move better. So that's the important thing about it. So, questions?
All right, so
Chicago.
Freezing spray. How can you put so to me, when I think, okay, you just got to warm up, it means your muscle is warm. Freezing spray freezes the muscle, so how does that not cause more injury?
Yeah, so freezing spray doesn't freeze the muscle. What it does is it actually helps numb the surrounding nerves on the skin. And what that does is create almost kind of like you numb the area around there, so you're tricking the body into thinking it doesn't hurt as much because the nerve that's irritated from the muscle is also supplying the skin. And so it's just wiring, right? The nervous system is just wiring. So if you have a short circuit in a one switch, you either go back to the circuit board or check all along to the light bulb and see what's going on. And there could be a short circuit anywhere. And so that's really, it's the same thing with capsaicin cream or scratching. When you scratch, what are you doing? You're distracting the mind from stimulating the nerves in one area or in the same, it's close enough area so that the pain fibers from the actual injury are maybe overwhelmed and you get so many more afferent feedback from the nerves that you're scratching, irritating, or now numb, that it reduces the overall pain mechanics and the cognitive pain behavior response from the freezing spray. So it's actually a very simple solution to a very complex nervous system. We're basically, it's kind of like we're, jailbreaking the code for the nervous system. It's kind of like scratching here to make your pain feel better. See, Joey's already scratching his back, right? Because he's been standing there hearing me talk this whole time. It makes a difference. And that's how scratching works. That's how capsaicin cream works. The Asper creams and the diclofenac gels, they actually have anti-inflammatory medications within, so they actually penetrate and they can actually help with anti-inflammatory. But the icy hot, applying heat, applying cold, you're basically just making the nerves feel different to alleviate the pain. Now, heat will actually, when you apply heat, it'll actually try and loosen up the muscles by blood flow. But you alternate heat with ice. So you flush in, you flush out. Flush the good nutrients in, flush out the bad nutrients. And that's kind of a simple mechanic. Same with ice baths. Ice bath, cold bath, ice bath, cold bath. And with ice, you can do heat. In the first 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, ice. After that, alternate ice and heat. And so in a way, the freezing spray, what it does, aside from trying to cheat the system, is it creates a temporary cold surface on the skin that draws blood flow either away or in, depending on the timing. And then what it does is it adjusts the flow mechanics and the vascular supply in that region, which is how it works deep and superficial. So it's a multimodal approach to it. And so that's kind of a quick answer to that question.
He could take the next. We did so well the last game. He could literally take this game off just to make sure.
Yeah.
But if he can't play,
Yeah.
So he didn't get cut because we would have heard about it.
We would have heard about it.
He was hanging out on the sidelines.
Yeah, he didn't
and
get compartment-separated. He didn't get a laceration. We would have heard about all that. That's a little more severe. We've seen blood on the field. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he can't go,
Yeah.
what's the likely injury?
Well, I mean, there could be a number of things. I mean, yeah, he could skip it. And so he says it's probably a deeper contusion or even a partial tear or a big hematoma or enough that he doesn't feel comfortable walking or running. So if you still have stiffness in your ankle and you still have pain because of the tightness, then you don't want to take a chance on a more severe injury. We've seen the severe injuries of the Klay Thompsons, right? Where you get an Achilles, a hamstring problem, and then it just sort of, you get a whole cascade of injuries. And that's typically what happens. One injury, cascade, and then you get your big injury. And so a lot of times these smaller, minor issues can actually escalate and build up over time. So it would basically be a conversation between how he's feeling, how he's moving, his therapist, his trainer, his coach, his doctor, and they make a decision. And, if he's not feeling 100% and he can skip the game, which he likely can because of the way the tournament schedule is, then yeah, why not? Why take a chance not being 100% when you could? But it's the World Cup. Like what if something terrible happens and they lose? They're not going to be knocked out with this loss, but, you want to be there. And so, but always, no matter what, put your body first. But it's the World Cup. When it's the World Cup or the Stanley Cup playoffs, hockey, you do what it takes. You stay in there. In baseball, they got so many players. Who cares about baseball? It's like, but in the big championship games, like the Knicks. What? Amazing. You go for the NBA, you're going to play the championships. You go for the Stanley Cup, you're going to play. You're going to do what it takes. If you're out of the Stanley Cup or the World Cup, you have a significant enough injury. All right? So hope you heal. Hope you're back on the field at least Friday or later, maybe later. As long as you're back, that's all good. Just be healthy and... Okay.
Is Canada going to actually win a World Cup game this time?
My prediction is that Canada will win one World Cup game.
First win.
First win.